On October 12, 2023, the 911 emergency center in Galliella, Florida, received a deeply unsettling call at approximately 11:30 p.m. on the other end of the line. A teenager's voice, choked with sobs, urgently pleaded for someone to be dispatched to his home, stating that his mother was lifeless. However, the boy was unable to provide his home address, which extended the conversation for more than 10 minutes. Eventually, they managed to gather enough information to send a police unit. The operator, despite the disturbing nature of the call, remained composed and tried to extract crucial details while attempting to determine the caller's location. Shortly after Derek's birth, they concluded that separating was in everyone's best interest. What authorities discovered upon arriving at the residence would spark a complex investigation, one that, due to its nature and the many unanswered questions it raised, deeply shocked the entire community. Derek Rosa was born on August 26, 2010, in Florida, United States. Although his birth brought immense joy to the family, it occurred amid turbulent circumstances. Rosa, a former military serviceman with 22 years of dedication, served as a major role model for his son. Derek even dreamed of following in his father's footsteps and aspired to become an engineer in the armed forces. Thanks to these admirable qualities, the family quickly integrated into their new neighborhood. Residents of the apartment complex held them in high regard, especially Irina, who was known for her cheerful and friendly demeanor, always seen with a smile on her face. Neighbors regularly observed her running errands, often accompanied by Derek, who would help her carry grocery bags. His parents, Irina García and Rosa, were experiencing significant difficulties in their relationship. Everything appeared calm and normal within the family's routine. On the other end, amid sobs, 13-year-old Derek Rosa pleaded urgently for help. The operator who answered asked whether he was alone or if there was anyone else in the house. He confessed that he had killed her with a kitchen knife, fully aware that his infant sister remained in the home, completely dependent on him. Derek responded that both his mother and his 2-week-old sister were there with him. During the rest of the call, his emotional state shifted dramatically. At times, he even seemed disturbingly proud of his actions. That's why what transpired on the night of October 12, 2023, came as a complete shock, leaving the entire community stunned. He sent these images to Sweden, a friend he had met 3 years earlier, while playing online video games. Without warning, the peace of both the Rosa family and the neighborhood was shattered most unexpectedly and tragically. Since Derek didn't know his exact home address, the operator guided him until he located a piece of mail in the house that contained the necessary information. He explained that he had spent the entire day at home with her and his baby sister. Around 10 p.m., they had all gone to bed, but roughly an hour later, he got up, went to the kitchen, retrieved a knife, and walked into Irina's bedroom. Meanwhile, Derek was transported to the police station for questioning. His mother's bedroom had been turned into a scene of unspeakable violence, a bloodbath. Meanwhile, the newborn remained peacefully asleep in her crib, entirely unaware of the horror that had unfolded just feet away. Although Derek stated that he understood what they were saying, his facial expression betrayed confusion and disorientation. Nevertheless, he agreed to answer all of their questions without the presence of legal counsel. Once they had the address, law enforcement arrived at the residence within minutes. Despite the physical distance, Derek maintained a close bond with his father, whom he visited every weekend in Broward County. Frank, a Cuban-born truck driver, was often away due to work, yet he had managed to build a relationship with Derek rooted in mutual respect. Derek regarded him as another strong male figure in his life. During the weekdays, Derek lived with his mother, Irina, and his stepfather, Frank Ramos, in an apartment complex in Galliella, Florida. She asked whether anyone else had been injured and where he had left the weapon. Derek explained that the baby was still asleep in her crib, just inches away from where he had stabbed his mother. Fortunately, she had not awakened during the incident because, as he put it, he wouldn't have known what to do if she had. The family had moved to Galliella in 2022, driven by aspirations of building a brighter future. Irina and Frank wished to expand their family, and that dream eventually became a reality. Irina soon informed Derek that he would become a big brother to a baby girl. Derek expressed genuine excitement at the news, a moment captured in heartfelt family photographs, where their joy was evident. No one had expected a different reaction from Derek, given the bond they shared. He was known as a kind, and somewhat shy young boy, the kind of child who stood out for his exemplary behavior, even among adults. Derek was never one to cause trouble. He was in the 8th grade at middle high school, where teachers regarded him as an outstanding student, frequently recognized with academic honors. There was no indication of any trouble in their daily lives. It was around 11:30 p.m. when the 911 emergency line received a disturbing and confusing call. But when the operator asked to speak with his mother, the true horror began to unfold. Derek hesitated, then admitted that his mother was no longer alive and that there was blood everywhere. The operator remained composed and tried to extract more information. However, when he attempted to answer the question about the knife's location, he became visibly distraught, realizing it was not where he thought he had left it and that he couldn't find it at that moment. He also revealed to the operator that after killing his mother, he had retrieved one of the firearms his stepfather kept locked in a bedroom closet. He had initially intended to take his own life, but ultimately changed his mind. Throughout the call, Derek showed genuine emotion on only 2 brief occasions. At the beginning of the conversation, and when asked why he had killed his mother, during the call with the 911 operator, Derek admitted that he had taken photographs of his mother's body, including selfies in which his hands were visibly covered in blood. The conversation lasted approximately 17 minutes. Upon entering, authorities quickly confirmed that everything the boy had described was true. The officers immediately contacted Derek's maternal grandmother, not only to inform her of the tragic events, but also to request that she come to the scene and take custody of the infant. Before beginning the formal interrogation, officers read him his Miranda rights. By then it was already early morning when Derek began to describe in chilling detail how he had taken his mother's life. He explained that he had spent the entire day at home with her and his baby sister. Around 10 o'clock p.m., they had all gone to bed, but roughly an hour later, he got up, went to the kitchen, retrieved a knife, and walked into Irina's bedroom. Before he could continue, officers asked him to describe the knife, specifically the color of its handle and where on his mother's body he had stabbed her. Derek recalled that the handle was purple and that he had targeted her carotid artery, knowing it would cause her to bleed out quickly and die within moments. Everything he recounted aligned precisely with what he had told the 911 operator hours earlier. For the investigators, it was deeply unsettling to be sitting across from a 13-year-old boy who recounted the brutal killing of his mother with startling composure, showing no signs of remorse or hesitation. Derek requested to use the restroom, and upon returning, he refused to continue speaking without a lawyer present. The clock read 3:05 a.m. when the interview was officially suspended. They noticed that Derek's hands were still stained with blood. It was at that moment that the teenager began to show signs of discomfort. Nonetheless, he continued answering each question posed to him. However, when investigators asked about his motive, the smooth flow of the interrogation abruptly halted. Authorities launched a thorough investigation to gather evidence that would help them reconstruct the circumstances surrounding the murder and to uncover the motive that had driven Derek to commit such an act. It was found next to the crib of his newborn sister, covered in blood, with its tip broken, providing clear evidence of the brutality involved in the attack. Although investigators had obtained a full confession and were certain about the identity of the perpetrator, their work was far from over. A device installed at the front entrance recorded. One of the first significant discoveries was the purple-handled knife Derek had mentioned in his statement. Before he stepped outside, Irina told him not to run, to which he replied, "Why do you always tell me not to run?" This seemingly ordinary exchange might suggest some tension between mother and son, yet the tone was not aggressive, so any possibility of a conflict at that moment was ruled out. This video captured the exact moment of the assault. Upon examining Derek's computer, investigators unearthed a disturbing Google search history from around 6 p.m. on the day of the murder. Some of the queries included: during the attack, Derek reportedly hurled homophobic slurs at his mother, an alarming detail that caught the investigators' attention. What is the best place to stab someone? However, due to the severity of the crime and the first-degree murder charge, authorities decided to transfer him to Metro's Detention Center, an adult correctional facility located in Doral, Florida. Derek was placed in solitary confinement, with no access to common areas to prevent contact with other inmates. He was placed under constant surveillance. One psychiatrist suggested the possibility that he suffered from attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, while another considered that he might fall within the autism spectrum. Still, several professionals noted that there are studies indicating that individuals with undiagnosed or untreated ADHD may struggle with impulse control, particularly regarding episodes of anger or anxiety, potentially leading to erratic and dangerous decisions. Carotid artery diagram with image. Can a small knife kill someone? He based his decision on the absence of any official diagnosis before Derek's arrest and emphasized that the boy had never previously exhibited behavioral signs that would have warranted a formal evaluation. Can a knife cut through bone? These searches strongly indicated the crime had not been an impulsive act, it had been carefully planned. In addition, the home surveillance cameras provided visual documentation of the family's final hours together. Surveillance footage showed Derek leaving the house around 8:30 p.m. while his mother was breastfeeding the baby on the living room couch. Just seconds later, the same camera captured Derek re-entering the house, with his mother still seated in the same position. It was never disclosed whether Derek had stepped out to prepare for the attack or what he was doing during those moments outside the home. However, the most disturbing footage accessed by investigators came from a camera installed in Irina's bedroom, aimed at the baby's crib to monitor her while she slept. At precisely 11 p.m., while Irina and her daughter were asleep, Derek was seen entering the bedroom from behind and stabbing his mother without warning. The forensic report revealed that Irina García, sustained a total of 46 stab wounds, with only her calves remaining uninjured. Derek's 2 confessions, his incriminating online search history, the surveillance footage, and the forensic analysis provided authorities with overwhelming evidence to build a strong case against him. Although it remained a delicate matter given his age, Derek Rosa, 13, was initially detained at a juvenile detention facility. Despite the transfer, precautions were taken to ensure his safety. Since his arrest, Derek was subjected to numerous psychological evaluations conducted by professionals at the facility. However, the latter diagnosis alone was not sufficient to explain the extreme violence of his actions. Despite these assessments, Judge Richard Harris, who presided over Derek's pretrial hearings in December 2023, chose not to take them into account. Derek's defense was led by Daley, a high-profile attorney in the United States known for representing controversial clients such as Casey Anthony, the 22-year-old woman acquitted of murdering her infant daughter, and Harvey Weinstein, the film producer, convicted of numerous sexual assaults. Their legal strategy centered on having Derek transferred back to a juvenile detention center. They argued that his incarceration in an adult facility violated his constitutional rights, asserting that due to his young age and potential mental health disorders, he was unfit to remain in such a harsh and dangerous environment. During the hearings, the defense presented testimonies from instructors who worked directly with Derek in prison and interacted with him regularly. One math teacher described Derek as a typical adolescent with learning abilities on par with others his age, as it was not based on a direct evaluation of Derek, but rather on notes from his medical records compiled after his arrest. Her observations cast doubt on the more positive assessments from other educators who had previously worked with him and ordered that the accused remain in custody at Metro West Detention Center. Upon hearing them, the adolescent broke down in tears, displaying visible signs of distress and remorse over his actions. The defense insisted that they had not received complete access to all the evidence, making it difficult to adequately prepare for the trial, one in which he is expected to be tried and possibly sentenced as an adult. Reportedly, Derek's attorneys were requesting witness statements and video footage from the camera in Irina's bedroom. That same day, he was observed passing notes to his attorney and whispering with noticeable anxiety. Despite Derek's double confession, a segment of the population began voicing support for his innocence, arguing that, in contrast, a language instructor testified that Derek struggled significantly with comprehension, frequently interrupting lessons due to a lack of understanding. The debate initially emerged due to the absence of a clear motive behind the crime, sparking widespread speculation and the circulation of various theories across social media and public forums. Additionally, a forensic psychologist suggested that Derek may have been undergoing a desperate psychological crisis and that a potential diagnosis of autism. In the recording, a second voice can allegedly be heard in the background, and a young girl, neither of whom was Irina or her newborn daughter. Ramos reportedly refused to grant them entry, justifying his decision by claiming that the property had already been cleaned and altered by Rosa, Derek's. However, none of the circulating theories were ever substantiated by concrete evidence and, therefore, had no impact on the official investigation conducted by authorities. These users alleged that Ramos had a separate partner and child in Cuba, and that he had brought them to live with him in the U.S. following Irina's death. Second, a still image captured by the nursery camera showed an unidentified figure of Irina while she was asleep. Perhaps this will remain one of the most perplexing mysteries of the case. Or perhaps the investigation will take an unexpected turn. This financial support reflects a community deeply divided between those who stand by Derek and those who seek justice for Irina García. If you found today's case compelling and informative, I kindly ask you to leave a like or comment about tonight's broadcast. Advocates from the Save Derek Rosa movement claimed the person in the footage could not be Derek, arguing that the individual's physique appeared significantly larger than that of the teenager. They described him as a noble boy incapable of committing such a heinous act, and implied that other individuals or external factors might have influenced the outcome. This perspective further fueled public speculation about the possible involvement of third parties in the crime. The psychologist's suggestion that autism could have been an influential factor was ultimately dismissed by the judge. Although the authorities never considered him a suspect or person of interest, several internet users questioned his potential involvement. Derek Rosa remains in custody, awaiting the commencement of his trial, which is expected to begin in April 2025. His father and maternal grandmother, firmly convinced of his innocence, have been instrumental in his defense, working tirelessly to secure him a fair trial. In contrast, the prosecution presented audio recordings in which Derek could be heard confessing to the murder of his mother. Despite the defense's continued efforts to have Derek transferred to a juvenile facility, Judge Richard Harris denied the requested trial, originally scheduled for December 2, 2024, was postponed multiple times due to ongoing disputes between Derek's legal team and the prosecution. Meanwhile, the prosecution declared itself ready to proceed, further escalating tensions between the two parties. As of the time of this recording in March 2025, Derek Rosa remains incarcerated, spending the majority of his days confined to his cell while awaiting a trial that will ultimately determine his fate. Out of the 24 hours in a day, he is permitted only 1 hour of recreation, during which he can play basketball or soccer with another inmate of the same age. As more details of the crime surfaced and media coverage intensified, public opinion became increasingly divided. While some believed in Derek's innocence, Others placed their trust in the evidence gathered by the prosecution that directly implicated him. On one hand, close family members such as his biological father and maternal grandmother have voiced their unwavering support for Derek. One of the most widely discussed theories online implicated Frank Ramos, Derek's stepfather and Irina's husband. These suspicions gained traction in an online petition titled Save Derek, where supporters who believed in the teenager's innocence challenged the prosecution's case, citing various inconsistencies in the evidence. First, they pointed to the 911 call Derek made on the night of the murder. Another controversial theory centered around Frank Ramos' Facebook profile. Observers noted that several photographs depicted the truck driver with a woman. Public suspicion of Ramos intensified further after it came to light that Derek's legal team had requested to inspect and take measurements inside the house where the crime occurred. Derek's father and maternal grandmother played a crucial role in his defense. This case has ignited a heated public discourse surrounding youth mental health and the justice system's approach to prosecuting minors. To cover mounting legal expenses, the family launched a fundraising campaign that has surpassed $140,000 in donation. One question lingers in the minds of many. What drove Derek Rosa to take the shocking decision to kill his mother in cold blood? Is Derek Rosa truly guilty? Or is he innocent? What do you think? Once again, dear audience, I thank you for your presence.